as I said earlier, this assignment is mainly a quick overview into sort of setting assignments on Google Classroom. It was originally advertised as setting assignments and responding to feedback on Google Classroom. However, that was just too much to fit into one webinar session, so we've slimmed it down. Do keep an eye on our Twitter. It's in the top right corner, OSFC_EdTech, and that will keep you up to date with any new webinars that are coming out, and our program is also on there as well. So, I'm going to move swiftly on to today's session aims. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through three main session aims. First of all, I'm going to talk you through basically how to organise your Google Drive and your Google Classroom so it's easy to navigate through and set work. The second thing I'm going to talk you through is how to create purposeful assignments in Google Classroom. So as I sort of mentioned earlier, this is going to be a how-to guide, really, to setting work on Google Classroom. There will be future webinars that will look at the evidence behind sort of the research-led studies into what creates an effective online lesson. So this is the how-to guide. If you want sort of how to piece your lesson together with an evidence base, look out for a future webinar. And then I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to hand you over to Sarah, who's going to show you the quiz function in Google Classroom, which again is super important and interesting for finding out about what knowledge your students do have. So, assignments then, first of all. I've said this quite a few times, so I think I should really define what an assignment is in Google Classroom. And it's basically a piece of work that you set to an individual class, and the students will get an individual document that they can edit and work on. I like to think of them as almost interactive worksheets. You send it to the student, they can edit it, and you can respond. Now, the only thing with assignments on Google Classroom is that the file that you set as your worksheet must be saved as a G Suite file on Google Drive. Now, this sounds quite complicated, but in fact, it's really quite simple. Okay, you will get your Drive alongside Google Classroom, and your Drive is an area to store work and resources. And all it means that any documents that you have, sort of any Word documents or Microsoft PowerPoint documents, need to be converted into a compatible file with Drive and Classroom. Okay, so this is really easy to do. I've got a screenshot on the screen here of my Google Drive, and I've just selected the cog icon in the top right corner, and this brings up my settings box. All I've done here is I've checked convert uploaded files to Google Docs editor format, and all this means is when I add a file from my computer into Google Drive, it will transform it from a Microsoft Word document into a Google document, from a Microsoft PowerPoint document into a Google Slides document, and this just means it works really well. And then if you are thinking that you've got lots of files that you can use, Drive has a really useful function. So when you go to your home page on the Drive, there is a big button that says New, and from here you can choose to upload individual files onto your Drive, or if you've got a whole folder of resources that you want to upload, you can upload that with the folder upload function. And that just means that your work is then in a compatible format that will work best with Google Classroom. Okay, so that's the Google side, Google Drive side of keeping things sort of organised and getting your settings in check. I'm then going to flick straight to Classroom. Now, I apologise, I've not put a screenshot of my Classroom on. If we've got time at the end, we can show you what Classroom looks like live. So I have reached this page here by going onto my Google Classroom homepage. Now, your Google Classroom homepage will have various boxes for each of your individual classes. If you select one of these classes, it takes you into your virtual classroom. Now, there are numerous pages or tabs within your Google Classroom. One is the stream, which is like a bit of a news feed. We've then got classwork, which I have selected here. Now, I've gone straight to classwork because this is the most important one in terms of assignments. Under your classwork tab is where all of your assignments will be posted and visible to you and students. Okay? Now, again, like with your Google Drive, it's worth spending a little bit of time making sure that your classroom is organised and easy to navigate. The best way to do this is to create topics within your classroom. And this just means that you can have various topics that you are teaching at the same time. It's really easy for you and students to navigate and see which work has been set. And for me, it really helps with visualising the sequencing of my learning for both me and my students. So again, Google has made this quite simple to organise your classroom tab. We've got the Create button at the top. And from here, you just select a topic and then you can create that into your Google Classroom and you can sort of set assignments by topic. So once we've got the drive sorted, we've got our classroom organised, I'm going to show you how to create an assignment. But first, I wanted to just point out a few tips for the type of work that you set to your students on Google Classroom. The first thing is to be aware that students will work much more slowly at home. Without your guided direction and guided instruction, we have found that students, one, don't complete half as much work as we expect them to, and two, become overwhelmed really quite easily with just the volume of work that they have been setting. So my advice would be to reduce your expectation in terms of content. So personally for me, during a lesson in school, I might set 3 learning objectives or 3 tasks. However, for an online learning, I'd slim that down to 2 maximum. The second thing I would consider doing is using a template for your assignment or your worksheet. Now, this might be as detailed as a worksheet with information and space to answer the question, or it may be if you're doing a longer piece of extended writing, sort of subheadings with topics that you want them to include. And the reason for this is you are much more likely to get work back of a quality you expect if you sort of signpost students to what you want them to include. And then my final piece of advice on your types of assignment would be consider the type of task that you set. We have found that we get a lot more engagement with the information and therefore a lot more understanding from tasks where we give students some information and ask them to do something with it. We call them thinking deeper tasks. So for example, asking them to reduce the information down into its key points, asking them to select the most important piece of information, categorizing the information, deleting anything that's not valid, rather than a basic comprehension or a basic research task. We've found that they spend more time doing these types of tasks and they're more likely to do them properly rather than just rush through them. Okay. So once you have decided on your task that you would like to set as an assignment and you have uploaded it into Google Drive, so it's in a compatible format, you're then ready to set your assignment. Okay. So from the classwork tab again, we're going to use the Create button just here. And instead of selecting a topic like before, we're just going to select assignment. And this is the page that you will receive. Again, apologies I can't do this live. I can't show you my students' names for GDPR reasons, but I can talk you through a few top tips again for how to structure your assignment and what to include. So first of all, give it a title. This would just be what they would write down in class. Again, for me, an understanding sequencing, I sort of give it a number title, numerical title, so lesson 1, evidence for climate change. And this just helps my students to understand where the work fits into the scheme of learning. For the instructions, I tend to give them a little bit of context to the lesson. And I also might link this to prior knowledge. So they're starting to make links in their scheme already where this lesson fits into the greater scheme of learning. And I also give them some really explicit instructions as to what I expect them to do. So for example, this assignment, I have asked them to watch the GCSE, which is a video, and then complete the assignment. And I've been really clear that I would like them to complete the assignment on the document by editing it, okay? I haven't added it in here, but I normally would say if they have any questions, they can use the comment box below to sort of engage in a dialogue with me of anything that they are struggling with. And then you are ready to add your assignment to it. Okay, so we use the add button just here, and you're going to select add from Drive, and you should be able to really easily select the worksheet that you have made for the students and add it into your Google Drive. Now, the most important thing you must do at this point is to change the drop-down menu when your document appears. By default, it will automatically say students can view the file, okay? If you don't change this, you'll just have hundreds of emails from students asking for access or saying that they can't edit it. So you must make sure that you select make a copy for each student, and this will send one individual document to each student that they can edit. The other option is students can edit the file. Don't click that, because that just means they're editing your original document. And basically whoever edits it first just puts the answers in for everybody else. So make a copy for each student each time. If you forget to do this, you can't go back into your assignment and edit it. Okay, so that is the one thing to remember. So once you've got your work, you can then select who you'd like to set it for. On the left here, under 4, you've got all of your different classes. So this is particularly useful at secondary school if you are teaching multiple classes that are on the same topic. You can set the work to 2 classes or more. Or conversely, you might just want to set the work to a small group of students. Now, I found this particularly useful for the students that are self-isolating at the minute. So if I have sort of 5 students off in one class, I can select the all students drop down menu and then just select the 5 students who are not in school at the minute. And this means they can complete the work at home and won't fall behind. I have also used this quite well for differentiation as well. So if I've got a number of students that I need to stretch and challenge, I can set them a higher ability worksheet than the rest of the class. You can assign a points value or you can leave it unmarked, that's up to you, but it is really important that you give your students a due date. This just helps your students sort of manage their workload and prioritise which assignments need to be done first, and also it helps your workload as you know exactly when the work is due in and when to expect it. You can also give it a time as well. I often set mine for due in at 8 AM, so they're not trying to do it 20 minutes before the lesson at lunchtime. And then give it a topic, and this will just file it in the correct part of your classroom to keep it organised. So once you have completed all of these, you are ready to then assign your work, and that will be published and go live to the students. You do have the option from this drop-down menu just here to schedule it for a later date. So I don't know, if on a Sunday night you want to get all of your online learning scheduled, you can do that too. Now, I realise I've gone quite quickly through a lot of topics. The final thing I just want to show you is the student view of assignments. So students will be able to see what you set as an assignment in their classwork tab. So if they go into their individual classroom, they should be able to see what you have set. Google Classroom also provides students with a to-do list where this is what's shown on the screen at the minute, where it shows them which assignments they've got coming up next week and the week after. And it's a really useful tool, again, for making sure the students are have got a little bit of self-motivation and are completing assignments on time. And as well as that, they will also get an email notification to say that you have set an assignment. So there should really be no excuses for students not knowing that an assignment has been set. Right, so that was a lot of information quite quickly. I'm going to pause here and ask if anyone's got any questions. I think Kelly has been keeping an eye on the chat to see, yeah, we'll respond to any questions.
There's not been anything on the chat. There's been no questions.
Okay, I've got one. John has messaged me. So, do you know of any schools using this with early years or Key Stage 1 pupils? Many thanks. not off the top of our head, but we can find out. We are working with a number of schools and a number of primary schools to implement sort of online learning. But we can find that out for you and email you. No, Kelly says no, not on Google Classroom. I think there are other providers. Yeah, Seesaw and yeah,
Microsoft Teams is quite popular with
Teams. Yeah. Our other question is, can you carry out live broadcasts? And Kelly's answered, no, you can't do live broadcasts on Google Classroom. You can set the work, but Google Classroom has a Google Meet function, which is their video call. So you can assign a Google Meet on Google Classroom. Your students can click the link and join your online meet. Any more questions, or do you think we're good to move on? Yeah, we'll catch up on any. Right, thanks for listening. I'm going to hand you over to Sarah, who's going to talk you through quizzing.
Right, hi everyone. So I'm going to be looking at quizzing, and obviously it's set up as another assignment basically. So you go to exactly the same place. So once I can move on. Okay, so quizzing is really, really important, obviously from a secondary point of view, because this is where Amy and I work from a secondary point of view. The link to retrieval practice, space learning, and Rosenshine's principle of instruction is really high up on the agenda. Teaching and learning obviously is massive across all educational settings. So quizzing is really, really useful, especially for the assessment part of your lessons. So how to set up a quiz, it's exactly the same as where Amy showed you beforehand. So you go to create, and then just underneath assignment, which Amy has gone through with you, it's quiz assignment. Dead simple. You go to your classwork, you go to create, and there's your assignment, and you just click on quiz assignment. So once you've done that, you need to fill in the brief. So you give it a title. So I've just called it quiz demonstration. Then any instructions that you want to give to the children. So I've said fill in the quiz with the knowledge you've gained over the last few weeks. Don't cheat, and hand in once you've completed it. So it's a simple title, some instructions, and then same as what Amy said, you can assign to the students. It can be altered if necessary to facilitate differentiation or self-isolation. Put in your hand-in date, and then for me, it's crucial that you put in the number of points, especially for a quiz. At a later date, we'll look at how to analyse quiz marks. It's quite important that you've got these marks in. The topic of learning, to ensure it's filed for you. Again, Amy's made reference to that quite significantly throughout the webinar. Just makes it easier for you. And then you click on the blank quiz at the bottom. Okay, so you can see it there. You can do this through Google Forms, but to start out, it's very, very easy to do it directly from Google Classrooms. So there's a screenshot of a blank quiz. So this is my first question that I'm going to be setting. Add your title. And then just to make it nice and engaging and a bit more colourful, you can customise the colour of the background of your quiz. There's a little palette menu just here, if you can see that on the top right hand corner. It's the left one, and then you can upload different colours, or you can upload different pictures. You can upload from Google. There are free websites out there. Obviously, for copyright issues, we need to be careful with this. Unsplash.com, which is beautiful free images, and the Noun Project have great free images that you can download and then put into your quizzes. So once you've done your theme, here's my theme, a nice book. I'm not an English teacher, by the way, but you can choose the type of question you want. So you can see here, there's a drop-down menu. I've selected multiple choice for this one, but there's a range of things. Multiple choice, check boxes, short answer, paragraph. But obviously, if you're asking the pupils to write a paragraph, you're going to have to mark it. These quizzes are self-marking ones, which obviously reduces workload. There's also linear scale, and then multiple choice grid and tick box grid. I'll go through a few of them so that you can see exactly how they work. You add your question in the entitled question section, as you can see here, and then you put the selection of answers in the option 1 and add other option area. Okay, so that would be a question. Now, key thing is to add in your answer by selecting the answer key, which is here. If you don't put an answer in, you're going to have to mark it, and we want to save time. And you can, if you want to, and I'll show you this, the icon's not actually there, but exactly where the arrow is, you can add an image for the stimulus for the question. So good for deeper thinking, okay? And I'll show you exactly a question with an image. So here we go. So I've chosen an organ of the heart. Well, I suppose it's a nice little artistic heart. We've got the image, and we've got 4 answers that you can see there. When putting your answer for multiple choice or checkbox questions, just tick the correct answer. It's as simple as that. That's all they want you to do, is check that. You put the number of marks in. Well, you can see that I've put 1 point. And you can, if you want to, put any feedback in, so that once they've done the quiz, they can get feedback from each of the questions if they got it wrong, so that you can always, you can set it so that they can resend it back to you with any changes. When you want to add a second question, all you do is add a question by using the plus button. Really, really simple, quite obvious. And then for this question, I've used a short answer question. So which blood cells fight disease and infection? Now, this is really crucial, and I made the fatal mistake of not putting in exactly the amount of variations of the word. So I did a different question. It was about rounders, and I'm a PE teacher, and we were looking at the rules of obstruction. I put obstruction with a capital letter. I put obstruction with a lowercase letter. I didn't put obstructing, so it marked the answer wrong. So it's really important that you put all variables in there. Once you've done that, you can always do a multiple check box question. So again, just go onto the plus button, and here you are. So this is a multiple choice box question. So you can do this in multiple ways. I've just used it as a true and false. It's the simplest way that I could think of showing you how to do this. Again, don't forget to put the answer key and the number of marks for each question. And then you can actually preview it. So at the top, there is an eye icon, and you can preview at any point during the quiz. So you can preview just 1 question, you can preview 5 if you've done 5, and this is what the question would look like. So I can see whether it's appropriate, if it's worked in the right way that I'd hoped it to. And I think that's really crucial, just to make sure that if you can make sense of it, so can the pupils. Then we've got making a copy. This is really, really good, because you can actually then use exactly the same quiz, but then differentiate it for your higher ability or your lower ability pupils. So that's really, really handy to be able to make a copy. And then this one's really, really good for time saving, adding collaborators. We are so busy, and it's really important that we are trying to save as much time as possible. So if you click on add collaborators, you put in their email address, the quiz then goes straight to that member of staff. They can use it. It saves them time. There's more consistency. The sequencing of things can go a lot better because you're all sharing the work. And there you go. That's the quiz. It's now stored in your Google Drive. You can access it at any time, and it's attached to your assignment sheet. You just need to press assign, and all the students will receive it. And that's it. That's a quiz. It's really, really simple. It's the same as Amy's doing the assignments. Really simple, really effective, very, very high impact very quickly. I know through lockdown, I was trying to set email assignments to my pupils, and it just wasn't working. The moment I put a quiz on, I got 70–80% engagement, bang, straight away, because it's just something different for them to do. Obviously, if you're doing the same thing over and over again, that engagement will drop, but that's why using pictures, using different stimulus can actually work. So, same as Amy, I know we've gone through very, very quickly these things, and we will try and show you, if people want to stick around for another 5–10 minutes, we will actually show you what the interface looks like. Are there any questions? Kelly, have you got anything?
Nothing on here, no.
Okay, we've either done that really well or we've bored everyone. Okay, right. So in terms of things that are coming up, we've said to you that we're going to do an additional webinar to go along with this, because obviously setting assignments and setting quizzes is great, but you need to actually look at the assessment of it. We've just come into contact with an extension on Google Classrooms, which is a verbal feedback mechanism, which we've started to use a little bit, haven't we, Kelly, through our own, doing our own.
Yeah, we have.
So that should allow us to give it a bit more time for us to look at it and to implement it, and then we'll be able to show you, plus the analysis of the quizzes as well. Next week is collaboration using online tools. Tuesday the 13th is improving online student engagement through the use of G Suite, and then Tuesday the 20th of October is using G Suite to develop content for asynchronized learning. I've told you about ours. The dates of that is to be confirmed. Everything that we've done will be emailed to you. You'll get a link tomorrow. It tends to be tomorrow with our administrator, but you should get a link tomorrow where you'll get a video of this and any resources that we've got. If you want any help, the Twitter is there. EdTech obviously is really, really there for us to set up. All you need to do is press the button. You can then use OSFC as the drop down if you haven't already, and then we will then be assigned to your school and to help you out. Kelly, I think I've just seen a couple of questions on the chat.
Yeah, I'm just trying to answer it on the chat, but may as well say it. So someone's asked if there's a real difference between Show My Homework and Google Classroom in terms of quiz, etc. I don't know if you guys know about Show My Homework. I've never used it.
No, I've not used it either.
But I would like to probably say that Google Classroom has probably got many more opportunities and options, whereas I think Show My Homework is literally for setting work, whereas Classroom can be obviously assignments like what we've said, but it can also be many other things like marking on there, quizzing on there, putting posts, putting all your resources on there. Like there's many, many more things than obviously what we've just looked at today in terms of options of what you can do on there. And obviously Google Meets is something that at OSFC we're doing for online lessons, because we've only got half the college in at one time, and we're teaching on Google Meets, which is also through Classroom, which is another bonus from my point of view. I don't know too much else about Show My Homework, to be honest.
I think the other benefit with Google Classroom is it's really compatible with a range of devices as well. It works well, especially the quizzes on student phones. It also works on Xboxes, so students can sort of view an assignment on an Xbox if they've got an Xbox at home. I don't know about Show Me My Homework, but the range of devices that it now is compatible with is also a big plus, especially if you've got families that perhaps have got multiple children that don't have multiple laptops.
Yeah, good one.
I agree.
Yeah.
Is there anything else, Kelly?
No, that's the only question on the chat, unless anybody's got any other questions that they want to ask.
Just give it time. You can always unmute your microphone if you want to. That's easier as well.
Must have covered everything.
Must have. Okay.
All right then.
Right, well, thanks ever so much for your time. Obviously, like we said, just get in contact with us. All the details are on the webinar that we've just given to you, that you'll get your link tomorrow. Just give us a shout and we'll help as much as we can.